Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Obadiah, as it's only one chapter. We're going to go into it, and, dealing with the book of Obadiah is not, at least even from the book, right? Obadiah in the beginning doesn't really give you much context as to, the time period he's in. But, most scholars would place him around the time of either during or a little post the siege of Jerusalem, right, in 586 by the Babylonians, as he describes that in here in this chapter. Okay, and in particular, the focal point being the role that Esau Edom played in that, and in general with coming against the Israelites, and ultimately the judgment that the Lord is going to bring upon the nation of Esau Edom. Okay, primarily. So that's why you see in the subheading, Edom will be humbled. And, this is one of those chapters that, due to the things written in here, you have certain individuals that try to find different ways to explain away what is actually written in this chapter and what it means, either by, making an argument that the Edomites no longer exist, they're done away with, or whatever the case is. But nevertheless, let's get into it. So this is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 1, the vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. So as it says, the vision of Obadiah, so this was one that was the Lord gave to Obadiah, that he received. And as it says here, this was concerning Esau Edom, right, which we know today are the modern day, the so-called Caucasian race, right? Those would be the descendants of Esau Edom today. But as it says, we have heard a rumor from the Lord. And when you go into that word rumor, it basically means like a message, all right, or information here, right? And an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. So now what this is saying here, not in a direct literal sense, okay, but in the sense that when you deal with the ancient world, right, you would have a situation where, let's say, for example, you had maybe even similar to what happened with when the Assyrians were going down. So you might have one nation that is a superpower, right, the dominant empire at the time, and then you may have a time when it faces some imbalance or some weakness, and then another nation tries to take advantage of that, and here they are going to war. And based on how the war is going, you have envoys that, because when you go into the word ambassador, it goes into that, right? Like a messenger, or envoy. Let's go into that word here. Tazayar. And it says here, right? Envoy, messenger. So you can imagine, the messenger, they go spreading the news. And these neighboring nations, okay, hear about that, and they're like, okay, that's like the green light, right? It's go time. Let's go and join in that battle and take this empire or this nation down. So similarly, but in this case, the point of saying it this way is to emphasize the notion that, these heathens, okay, are going to rise up against Esau Edom, almost as if there was an envoy sent to them saying, hey, this is the message, this is go time, prepare battle against them. And that's why it says, ascend among the heathen, arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. So who is this her? This her is referring to the nation of Esau Edom. Okay, now in our time, at least, the primary location, you could say, associated with the nation of Edom is Babylon, okay, aka America. And we know that behind the scenes, those pulling the strings are the heads of the nation of Edom, right? Those that collectively are referred to as the banking families, right? The 1%, the top, the elites, they are the ones pulling the strings here and there. and they're using Babylon as like the face or the forefront. Hence, in the book of Revelation, she is, she appears as the woman that is riding upon the scarlet colored beast, right? So anyway, coming back to verse 2, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And that word, what the Lord is saying here through the vision he gave Obadiah is that the Edomites are been made insignificant, right? When you go into that word small, in the Hebrew, it goes into the word insignificant. So it's not small in terms of quantity. Okay. Quartan, I believe that's the word there. But it says here, young, small, insignificant, unimportant. Okay. And the reason that they have the things that they have now is because the Lord put them in that position to fulfill prophecy. And that's, the reason these nations are even in league with this place or with Babylon is because of the trade or whatever agreements they have with them. But it's not because these nations actually like Babylon or the Edomites, let me put it like that, because they're very proud. So even when you deal with foreign nations, whether Ishmaelites or Elamites or Moabites or Ammonites, right, modern day Japanese, Chinese, or Arabs, when they deal with the Edomites, it's not because they like them so much, right? But it's for whatever agreement they're settling upon. But as it says here, the Lord said he has made them small among the heathen, so more the least significant, right? And it says thou art greatly despised. And now that aspect has been highlighted on a world scale, where people are now calling them out, calling out the Edomites because of the things that they do. That's what makes them greatly despised. Verse 3, the pride of thine heart meaning your mind, hath deceived thee. Why? Because the pride of their heart is what told them that you could do all this manner of atrocities to the earth, to the Lord's chosen people, blaspheme the Lord, do all these things and you'll be fine. The pride of their heart is what told them that, or deceived them into thinking that they're going to succeed in accomplishing this new world order. That is a deception, right? Into thinking that when the Messiah comes back, they're going to be able to stop him with their technology. It's because they're so proud, thinking that they've achieved a level no other nation or people has achieved before, so much so that they can even fight against their creator. And that's sort of what you hear when you listen or read books from the individuals like Noah Yuval Harari and others that share that same idea. Okay, it's the concept of challenging God. And that is why it says and that comes from their pride, right? Which is why it says that it has deceived them, because it has blinded them into thinking and becoming overly ambitious, so much so to go against the Creator. That thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, right? Now, when you even go back to the ancient world where Esau, Edom dwelt, right? You had, Petra, which was one of their main cities, and it was pretty much like caves, right? In a rock. So if we look up here, Petra, Edom, you can see here, right? This is pretty much how it's designed, right? And that's why it says in the clefts of the rocks, cavemen, you could call them. All right, that's literally how they had it set up over there. Now let me actually just look it up on here and see what comes up for Petra. Yeah, and hey, just like I was watching a video that was done by the Apostle Ramlab some time ago, and he mentioned it and highlighted it, right? That whenever you look up any information about Petra or Seir or Esau, there's always there's always some link, some message somewhere that tries to connect them to the Arabs, okay, and tries to shift the attention off of the Edomites, the modern day Caucasians, and push it onto the Arabs. And then they'll throw in the Nabateans, and then they'll because at some point, as it says here in the 4th century, the Nabateans came in there and took over. they basically tried to, when they dated back, they tried to date it back as far as that, and push that ideology, you know. So anyway, you've seen what it looks like, right? So going back to Obadiah 1, as it mentions them dwelling in the clefts of the rock, you know, you see an example of it, which is how they lived back then. But even now, as it mentions, whose habitation is high, being used to that kind of lifestyle, there's a reason why they design their their buildings today to look the way it does, okay, where it's kind of like a concrete jungle, and they build upwards. So you have a lot of these skyscrapers, these very tall buildings, okay, as it mentions their habitation being high. That saith in his heart, so this is their imagination, who shall bring me down to the ground? Now, something that's key to note here is those that are really being described here, right? These characteristics, these traits really are more closely attributed to the heads of the Edomites today, okay? Because, you know, it's not like every single individual Edomite is walking around thinking this, even though it's in their nature. But it more closely applies to the elites or the heads of the nation of Edom, because they're the ones who are in that position of power to be that proud, who are in that position of pulling the strings to have that idea or that God complex to think this way. Okay, because the average, you know, if you have a Edomite strung up on drugs on the street somewhere, he's probably not thinking like this, right? So that's why it says that, or as it says, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Going back to that pride, right? Slack here 1 second. You know, who shall bring me down to the ground, right? So basically, you know, who's going to be able to take them out of that position, that lofty, high position? Verse 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and we know the eagle is one of the highest flying birds. Okay, so they're typically that, you know, they're like attributed to like a proud bird because of how high they fly. But as it says here, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, and the nest is like a dwelling place, right? So when you look on a physical level, right, when you look at what they're trying to do, they not only build these skyscrapers, right? They're not only proud, but now that whole stepping into or invasion of space, where they're trying to set up these not even trying to, they have set up these space stations, you know, and basically trying to set up a situation to where they can make living in space a very possible reality, right? But as the Lord is saying here, right, via the vision he gave Obadiah, thence will I bring thee down to the ground. See, so when you start, as it says, though thou set thy nest among the stars, so though they because where are the stars? The stars are in our firmament, right? So they set up these space stations, they set up these, these rocket trips and all that to go up there. As the Lord says here, he's going to bring them down, right? Down to a low state, to the point where they're going to be even below surface level, right, of the earth. As I believe it's in the book of Isaiah, it talks about them dwelling in pits, which will be a part of that future judgment anyway. Verse 5, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? Basically, when you have people that thieves, right? Thieves break in, they take pretty much what they want, right? They take enough. They come in there for whatever they came for. If they target your house because it has jewelry or money, then that's what they're gonna come and take. They're not gonna leave with your toilet bowl, right? They're gonna come for what they had. That's why it says, would they not have stolen till they had enough, and then they would leave, right? If grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes, right? Because you had, it's according to the law. You would have in your harvest, for example, when you're gathering the crops, whether it's grapes or whatever it is, you're not supposed to glean everything. You're supposed to leave some on there for the widows, the homeless, the fatherless, those that were lower in society. They would at least have something to eat there. So the point that's being made here is the Lord is saying, if thieves came and robbed you, even they would leave something behind, because they would come for whatever it is they came for. If grape gatherers came, and did their gathering, they would also leave something behind. But for Esau Edom, as it says, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? And it's worded in the KJV, it's worded, almost like in reverse. But what it's saying here is, but concerning Esau Edom, you're going to be completely searched out. Okay, though it says, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things, meaning his treasures, sought up? Okay, and that's why it gives the example that it gives in the 5th verse, because the Lord is basically making that analogy to saying you're going to be stripped bare. So if we look at a few of the other translations for verse 6, it'll make it a bit clearer. Right, it says here, for NLT, every nook and cranny of Edom will be searched and looted. Every treasure will be found and taken. Right, but how Esau will be ransacked, his hidden treasures pillaged. Okay. Oh, how Esau will be searched and his hidden treasures searched out. So you get the gist of it. Verse 7, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. And the confederacy, meaning those that are confederate with you, right? Those that are in an alliance or in a league with you, have brought thee even to the border, which is another way of saying to turn against you. So in other words, today, for example, the allies, all right, of this place, you can think of it, like I mentioned, one of the main country being Babylon, right, are going to turn against it. It says the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee, meaning like as they say, like to betray you or to backstab you. And an example of that is in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter, as we read about how ultimately the 10 horns, which represent these European nations that are in league with the US, right, through the beast system, right, they're all in league together. Eventually they are going to turn, all right, on America, and they are going to partake in shooting nuclear missiles on this place to destroy it. So going back to Obadiah 1:7, it talks about how, as it says, they that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, synonymous with being at peace with thee, meaning like those that when you're close to somebody and they say you break bread with them, right? That means you're that's somebody that you're close to. As it says, they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, and a wound going into a trap. There is none understanding in him. So in other words, the Lord is going to have this done in such a way that they're not going to see it coming. They're not, it's going to be, they're going to be defenseless against it. Right. And even in Isaiah 47, it talks about that, right? The Lord is going to bring a fire against them, and thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. Verse 8, shall I not in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau? So right now, the Lord has put them in a position to where they are like the ones that have answers to everything. The technology, inventing new things, coming up with so-called new discoveries, writing all these new books and going into all these theories and yada yada. But the Lord has put them in that position for a limited amount of time to accomplish certain tasks, right? So that they can actually invent and come out with the technology needed to fulfill certain prophecies, for example, right? But as the Lord is saying, he is going to destroy the wise men out of Edom and understanding out of the mount of Esau, because when the Lord brings this final judgment and he breaks down all the things Esau has built, and he, physically and metaphorically, meaning the structure, the buildings, the infrastructure is all going to be broken down and destroyed. But along with that is going to go their ideas, their theology, their philosophies. All of those things are going to go away. And as it's happening, none of them are going to have answers or a way to survive or a way around this. And you can read Isaiah the 19th chapter as it goes into that as well. Though in Isaiah 19, instead of mentioning Esau or Edom, right, it's likening them onto Egyptians or Pharaoh. Still talking about the same thing. Verse 9, and thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed. Now we know Teman in various other scriptures, they're referenced as having men of wisdom amongst them, right? Or being wise men. So as the Lord is saying here, he's going to destroy the wisdom and understanding out of Edom. And it says, and thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. So this is a judgment the Lord is pronouncing against the nation of Esau, Edom, that, as it says, every one of them may be cut off by slaughter. So they're going to be taken out. Verse 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And this goes into, now, when it says thy violence against thy brother Jacob, right, it's not talking about just necessarily the man Esau and the man Jacob. Because when you go into that history, yes, after Jacob stole the blessing and he fled, when he came back, he basically made peace with Esau, his brother, right? Hugged and everything, and they kept it cool. But it wasn't until afterwards, right, their descendants, right, when that the clashes started, and intensified, and here we are today. So when it talks about the violence against thy brother, it means the things that the Edomites did against us. And the Jacob represents the Israelites. So as it says, for thy violence against thy brother, so the things they did then, the things they do now, but it's going to give you an example of some of that violence. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. You hear that? So the judgment the Lord is going to bring upon them is that at some point they're going to cease to exist because they're going to be terminated. Verse 11, in that day, or in the day, and here's an example, right, that Obadiah gives. And this gives you a rough idea as to a possible time period for Obadiah, because this reference he's making, and he's making as though it's like a fresh situation, right, is something that happened around the time of Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezra, and so on, Ezekiel. It says, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces. The strangers here are the Babylonians, right, that came against Israel during the siege of Jerusalem back in 586 BC, which, started a couple of years prior. But they carried away captive his forces, his being the Israelites. And in particular at this time, it was really the southern kingdom mainly, right? So primarily Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Of course, you had a sprinkling of the northern tribes amongst them. So as it says, carried away captive his forces, right? So when they finally broke through the walls, they took people, they took gold, they took all the things we had, right? And foreigners entered into his gates. Once again, when they broke through, they invaded us. That's what it was. And cast lots upon Jerusalem. Even thou wast as one of them. So Jerusalem became a prey, and the Edomites during this time partook in that. Okay. Verse 12, but thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother, in the day that he became a stranger. And when it says thou shouldest not have looked, meaning to gloat. Now, when you go into that word, because when you actually look at this in a couple of these other translations, you'll see they phrase it a bit easier to understand, right? You should not have gloated when they exiled your relatives to distant lands. So because to say look in the literal sense of just looking, it's kind of like saying, well, if they happen to see the things that were going on there, is just being a witness to it a crime enough? So now let's look up the word gloat. Definition. And as you can see, it says here, contemplate or dwell on one's own success or another's misfortune with smugness or malignant pleasure. You hear that? To delight in, to enjoy greatly, to revel in. So it shows you the mindset that they had towards us, right? That they reveled, they were greatly delighted to see the downfall of Israel, right? That the merciless killings and atrocious acts that were committed to our people. And that's why it says, thou shouldest not have looked on the day on the day of thy brother, in the day that he became a stranger, right? Because going back to our forefathers, Jacob and Esau were brothers. But as it says, in the day where he became a stranger. So, and I think when you go into the word here, it's in the Hebrew, they have it here as nakar, but the usage is different, right? The use here, you have nakar, but the use here is calamity, disaster, misfortune. So in other words, what it's saying here is, when it says that he became a stranger, in other words, it's like saying when the calamities befell him or came upon him. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. So you can imagine, not only, but as we keep on reading, you'll find out, not only were they, joyous to see this, but they also partook, right? Verse 13, thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. So when they saw this, they hopped up in there, they try to get some goods, right? But even more, it says, yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Let me give you an example. It's like if an individual is getting jumped by a group of people, and here it is, you got another individual that's watching, and having such a good time. And as this individual is getting jumped, this guy goes up in there. He sees that the dude's phone is hanging out his pocket while he's getting jumped. He pulls out his phone. He sees his wallet. He takes the wallet. He takes the cash out, right? Maybe the dude tries to run, and then this guy grabs him and pushes him back to the crowd to get jumped some more. So that's like a visual example you can imagine of like how what role these Edomites were playing. So as it says here, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. And as we just went through the book of Lamentations, you can read about, get a little taste of how disastrous it was, at least by the way that the book of Lamentations is written, because it was a lamenting for the same time period. Verse 14, neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Now, when you go into cut off, it means to take them out, right? To eliminate them. So guess what these Edomites were doing when the siege happened, when the troops ran up in there, when they were ransacking the city, and you had certain people trying to escape from different areas. Guess who was there to take them out? And not only that, but as it says, to cut off those of his that did escape, neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. So those that didn't end up dying, guess what? These guys were helping them get caught by the Babylonians. Verse 15, that for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. So as we just read up above, listing some examples of the things that Esau did and why he's going to get the judgment, or why they're going to get the judgment they're going to get. It says here, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. See, So the day of the Lord, which we know is going to be a day of destruction, but it's really a day of judgment, of punishment, where the Lord unleashes his vengeance for the wickedness that have been committed against his people and against him and his son and the heavenly host. Right? As it says, is near upon all the heathen, because pursuant to Zephaniah, the 3rd chapter, right, the Lord said he would gather, right, he would gather the nations and pour out his indignation upon them. As it says, as thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. See, so you committing violence against us, right, and coming against us and helping to our hurt, that violence, that hurt is going to come back upon you. Thy reward shall return upon thine own head. Verse 16, for as ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink and shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they had not been. Now, when it says ye have drunk upon my holy mountain, what it means is to basically consume, to overtake, to swallow up the holy mountain, which is Israel, right? In this case, Jerusalem. And they did that, right, in a literal sense by actually destroying us, right? So the Lord is saying, as a result of coming against my people, so shall all the heathen drink continually. Yea, they shall drink. So what are they going to drink? They're going to drink that judgment. As it is likened unto a cup that is going to pass on to them, right? There's a scripture that says that. I think it says, rejoice and be glad. I think it's Psalms. Let's see. Oh, actually, yeah. Lamentations 4:21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, thou that dwellest in the land of Uz. See, as we're reading of here in Obadiah, the 1st chapter. Thou that dwellest in the land of Uz, the cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shall make thyself naked. Okay. And so in this case, the as we're reading here, they shall drink, right, and they shall swallow down, which is that cup, that judgment that's going to come upon them. So just as they swallow down and consume the Lord's people, they're going to swallow down and consume the Lord's judgment. And they shall be as though they had not been, right? So they're going to be taken out. They're going to be, destroyed. And in particular, Esau, Edom is going to be no more. So once upon a time in the future, there's going to come a day where the Edomites cease to exist. As we're going to read further to expound on that point. Verse 17, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance. So as to where the heathens are going to get judgment, Mount Zion, which represents Israel, and in particular starting with the elect of the nation of Israel, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance. Deliverance from what? Deliverance from the judgment the Lord is bringing, and deliverance from this condition that we are in. And this is a future prophecy. And there shall be holiness, right? Because once the Lord delivers the elect, he's going to change them, make them pure. And through them, the whole nation is going to come back pure, righteous, and holy. And the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions, right? So, once again, once the Lord delivers us, we're going to gain, all right, their possessions. So the land, the resources, the power of the earth, everything. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame. So this now is letting you know, right, the house of Jacob and the house of Joseph represents the whole house of Israel. And the house of Esau for stubble. Now, when you go into the word stubble, it goes into chaff, which is, dry, right? And so if I pull up here, for example, chaff, you can see something like this, right? It's very dry, and it can easily be to lit up, right? So that's what Esau is going to be like. So as it says, the house of Jacob will be a fire, Joseph will be a flame, and Esau will be that dry chaff, and they shall kindle in them and devour them. So it's going to be like setting fire to chaff. You see how quickly it catches up and burns very quickly. So that's what the Lord is likening Esau, Edom to be. And they shall kindle in them and devour them. So they're going to be burnt. and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord Yahweh hath spoken it. See? So that's the judgment the Lord has pronounced against the nation of Esau, that after they have drunk of that cup, they've served that 1,000 years of captivity, they are going to be devoured as chaff is devoured by a flame, and there's nothing remaining of it. So shall Esau Edom be terminated, okay, leaving no remnants of that nation. Now, what's going to happen to their spirits, right? Once the Lord does that, we don't know. We have to see what the Lord decides. Verse 19, and they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau. The days of the south is referring to Israelites, okay? Because when you look at the geographical, I think I might have had one here. Okay. So you can see here, right? This is a nice map here, and you can see Kingdom of Edom down here, and you can see Kingdom of Judah over here, right? So really the closest neighbor here to us from our south, right? Esau Edom here. So they of the south is really dealing with Israelites, but in particular you have like Judah, right? As it says, they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau. So we're remember, once they're taken out, we're gonna get all that whole region back, including their land and all of that. And they of the plain, the Philistines, because when you look here, you can see Philistine, right? Philistine states. And this is the plain. Because here, when you actually look at the texture, this is more mountainous. Jerusalem is called a hill country because it was actually on a mountain. Like this area was more mountain-like, and that's why this was a valley, because you were descending from the mountain-like area to a low land. And that's why sometimes you'll read the scriptures and they'll mention going up to Jerusalem, because it was actually, in terms of altitude, it was higher. And then on the left side, you had the plain, which is, near the coast near the Mediterranean Sea. It was more like a plain. So as it says, they of the south shall possess, let's go back, shall possess the mount of Esau, and they of the plain, the Philistines. So we're going to get that territory as well. And they shall possess the fields of Ephraim. So we're going to get that land back. And the fields of Samaria. Because remember, the northern kingdom was taken out and the heathens were put in there, right? So now, when the Lord takes us back and gives us that authority and power, we're going to regain possession of all these different areas as well. And the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead. So long story short, the nation of Israel is going to gain our land back. Verse 20, and the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, right? So the captives, or in this case, like the remnant of the children of Israel, shall possess that of the Canaanites. So we're going to go back and possess the land, because it was really promised to us anyway. Even unto Zarephath, right, which is a location. Let's see where it tells us. Oops. Anyway, it says refinery, a city on the coast south of Sidon, right, and the residence of Elijah during the last part of the drought. And we know where Sidon is. If not, we can definitely look it up. It says here, continuing, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad. When you look this up, it doesn't really give you a exact location. They just have it as an area in the north. But the point that's being made here is we were scattered, right, and sent into captivity. So the remnants that the Lord is going to deliver, that are going to return, we're going to go back and possess the land. We're going to possess the land, as it says, that of the Canaanites, the land, the resources, and as it says, which is in Sepharad, shall possess the cities of the south, which is just an emphasis or re-emphasizing the point made in verse 19 about us getting that land and that region and territory back. Verse 21, and saviors shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord Yahweh's. And the saviors are Israelites here. Okay, if you read this in another translation, which is a bit clearer, it says here, NLT, those who have been rescued will go up to Mount Zion in Jerusalem to rule over the mountains of Edom, and the Lord himself will be king. Okay, so in this case, these are Israelites, as it says, that'll come up upon Mount Zion, because we're going to reign, right? We're going to rule. And as it says, to judge the mount of Esau. And we read up above, I believe in verse 18, how that judgment is going to take place. And the kingdom shall be the Lord Yahweh's. Yep. So the Lord is ultimately, we know the hierarchy, right? The Most High, Yahushai, the 144,000, right? The hierarchy on down. But at the end of the day, when we come up into power, it's really the Most High's kingdom anyway. But that brings us to the end of the book of Obadiah. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. And until next time, Shalom.